What's the most physically disgusting experience you've ever been through? When I was a very stupid teenager, I was working under the table for a local restaurant. One day, the owner asks me if I'd like to make some extra cash. See, they were the former owners of a catering business, and they used to use this rental unit kitchen on the other side of town, but they hadn't used it in 3 years, and the lease was up. So for $5 an hour, they wanted me and this other guy to go over there and clean it up, so the new tenants could get moved in. The place had no electricity and hadn't for a couple years, so when we opened the door, only darkness greeted us. Darkness, and a blast of the most revolting, putrid air I have ever experienced. I have cleaned animal corpses out of my woodshed. I have wrestled with a badly skunked German Shepherd. I have been to Newark, New Jersey, but nothing compares to the freaking stench of that old, black kitchen. It was as if, 3 years ago, the place had been in full swing, preparing for a banquet, when suddenly everyone dropped what they were doing and ran away, never to return. Pots full of rot stood on cold, cobwebbed stoves. Chafing dishes sat lined up in the insulated hot box that was the fridge, brimming with curdled remnants of leftovers. Knives and ladles still lay across the work surfaces, with the stains and goop of rotten food still on them. The trash cans were full of trash, which had decomposed, along with the bags, into evil black soup. I still do not understand how it was left in that condition. It didn't make any sense. But that other dope and I spent hours gagging on the miasma of preposterous neglect, shoveling rotten biomass out of a dark, dank building by flashlight. I felt filthy on the inside for days after that. I felt like something, or many horrible things, must have invaded my mouth and lungs and poisoned me. It was disgusting beyond my ability to explain, and I'm trying. I recently tried to play the new Resident Evil, and I can't. It's not the screaming rednecks, it's the dark, festering house, and the pots full of death, and the fridge full of rotten filth. It takes me right back to that kitchen and I want to vomit. I feel like I need a shower just from remembering this. First semester of college, was packing my suitcase around 12 AM BC. I was taking a bus at 8 AM to go home for the weekend. I checked my fridge for any perishables that I should eat before I leave, and saw my sushi roll I had gotten at the market earlier that day. A mistake. I scoffed it down, and within 20 minutes I was already having flashbacks of the nightmare that was to come. I am 19 years old, and I have thrown up twice in my life. My stomach was not equipped to handle this war. After kneeling before my dorm toilet for 2 hours, nauseous and in denial, it happened. Suddenly, hundreds of grains of rice Usain bolted up my throat and propelled into the toilet bowl. This projectile vomiting continued for 20 seconds before ceasing, but I was unaware that the rice grains had reproduced while in my system because I proceeded to spew 3x as much sushi into the toilet than I remembered eating. My throat burned from the soy sauce. My nose burned from trying to breathe through the never-ending shower of vomit. Bruised, battered, and defeated, I made the journey back to my room and laid in bed ready to forget about this tragedy, but I should have known that every good horror story has a sequel. The plumbing in our bathroom clogged up because the previous owner did some custom DIY plumbing and it turned out terribly. It works, barely. It would be way too expensive to fix, so we just have to deal with it. One day it clogged. I'm talking a system-wide backup, and the only way to fix it is opening up this one pipe and letting the pressure of the water push out the clog. Now the way it's set up is that the pipe you have to open is connected to the toilet. You can see where I'm going with this. I was all alone and had no one to help me because I opted to stay home while my parents visit family far away. I go to flush my toilet after a long dump. Lo and behold, it doesn't flush. I knew what I had to do, so I go outside and pop the top to pipe and let the water flow out. Some toilet paper comes out as well and I think that's it. Go back inside and try to flush. It doesn't go down. I go back outside and pop the top again and let it go through. I do this a few times, so I say frick, maybe the clog is deeper in, so I grab a hanger and bend it so that I can poke it into the pipe. That doesn't work, so I swallow my pride. Crouch down and reach my hand in there. My hand is engulfed in warm liquid, a mixture of pee and water. I gag and push through it. My hand hits the clog. It was a mixture of those flushable wipes and toilet paper. I resist the urge to vomit and push deeper into it and rip the clog out. Suddenly there was a rush of water and I get covered in a wave of brown liquid and I feel chunks of crap hitting my arm in the pipe. I start vomiting and it gets all over me. I rip my arm out of the pipe and in doing so launch chunks of broken feces into my face and some lands on my lips and mouth. I vomit even more. I was vomiting every fiber of my being. I get lightheaded and fall to my knees, right into a puddle of crap stew. More vomit escapes from my mouth before dragging myself into my house, stripping away my crap covered clothes and just scrubbing every inch of my body with as many types of soaps as I could find and scorching hot water. I walked out of that shower looking like a bright red prune that smelled like coconut covered roses. So, an abscess about the size of a baseball in between my rectum and bladder. They had to drain it somehow. They couldn't do it from the front, since intestines. They couldn't do it from the side, because hips. They couldn't do it directly from behind, because spine. So, they had to perform what they call a transgluteal drain. So, they would numb up the above part of one of my butt cheeks, and then stick a 1.5 foot long needle in there, then snake a wire through. They would CAT scan me, and if they found that the wire was close to the abscess, they would begin draining. If they were off, they would move the needle around, put the wire in, and TR6 again. It was trial and error. They said that I would be out of it during the procedure. Anesthetizes off my balls. Well, they waltzed my sorry butt into the operating room, ETH general anesthesia and fentanyl. Really good painkillers. But the unimaginable discomfort coming up could not be numbed. The first needle punctured my cottage cheese tincture, and you know that feeling when you have your hands wet and hold onto something plastic, so your fingers grip and rub on it, making that squeaking noise? Imagine that feeling, slowly being pushed into you. Then, the wire. You ever felt a hair in your mouth? Imagine that, big, cold, and wormy. Also, somehow the wire felt like it migrated its way to my nutsack. So this frozen noodle caressed my family Gemini. Do you have any idea how awful that is to be awake to? Last summer my boyfriend told me he would take out the trash. Well, his idea of taking out the trash was just putting it in the trunk of my car and not telling me instead of driving the 2 blocks to the public trash bin. A week goes by and I decided that it is my turn to take out the trash. I gather the bag from the kitchen and some other boxes of stuff that I didn't want anymore and went to put them inside my trunk. Let's recap that it was summer. My boyfriend put trash inside my trunk a week previously and it had been in the 90s all week. I can't even begin to describe the smell that hit me when I opened the trunk. It was hot and burned my eyes. I wish it had just been the smell that bothered me. Upon further inspection I found that my trunk was full of long plump maggots. I have a huge dislike for all bugs and this basically sent me over the edge. I was in full panic trying to figure out how to get the trash out of my car while still making it to work in time. I ended up throwing the rest of the trash into the trunk and driving the 2 blocks to the public trash bin with my trunk open to hopefully help with the smell. I got out and found some old fast food napkins in my glove compartment and after disposing of the new trash that wasn't covered in maggots I used the napkins as a barrier between my skin and the squirming pile of trash in my trunk. Getting the rotting trash bags out of the trunk was the easy part. The maggots fell off all over the place. I tried not to breath out of my nose by using my mouth but the smell was so awful that I could taste it in every cell of my body. What was left in my trunk was a puddle of maggots in all stages of life. I used the napkins to pick up the maggots by the handful. I could feel them popping open if I held them too tight. When I got them all out of my trunk I kind of broke down and ended up on my hands and knees puking. I ended up half an hour late to work and ended up leaving early to go home and curl up in the shower. TLDR. BF put garbage in my trunk and didn't tell me. Sat there for a very hot week. So many maggots. As a doctoral student in health sciences, we were required to take an anatomy dissection course. While this course was extremely interesting, on moments stands out as borderline traumatic. Since I am not a med student, we had the privilege to dissect our cadavers 1 layer at a time. That means we remove the skin, then the subcutaneous fat, then the muscles, etc. Now one of the cadavers we were working on was an overweight person. The group in charge of removing the layer of adipose tissue decided to remove it as 1 unit. This means they would take the fat off in 1 piece, like it was some kind of jumpsuit. They did this well. but I was in charge of helping move this onishi of stored human fat. You could probably actually wear this thing. It was at least 70 pounds, and it was yellow, greasy, and would consistently squish through my fingers as I tried to carry it. Not to mention the smell of embalming fluid and formaldehyde was almost unbearable. I had to leave the room as soon as we set it down, and I didn't enjoy food for at least 2 weeks because that smell and feeling of human grease was ingrained in my mind for days. TLDR. I was temporarily scarred from having to move a 70-pound jumpsuit of human fat in anatomy class. This story prompted me to go to Whole Foods and buy $40 of vegetables. No more takeout for a while. I will not become this cadaver. I bought a cell phone off a guy on Craigslist a few months prior to the incident. I work at a large airport doing electrical repairs. The guy I bought the phone from happened to work in the mechanical department. One day we both get called out to do some repairs on the Biffy dump. It's the sewage collection system that processes all the airplane waste collected by the sanitation trucks. There was a problem with a pump used to empty out the trucks. Turns out to be just a clog in the filter. So mechanical guy gets to work while I stand around and chat with him. He's suited up in his hazmat outfit, pulling out random objects that have clogged the pump. Trash, cigarette boxes, a few cell phones. I notice that he is putting the cell phones in a desperate bag than the rest of the garbage. So I ask him why. He explained that a lot of times you can just rinse them in water and let them dry. Then they are as good as new. After thinking how gross it was, I realized that he was the guy I bought my current phone from, and that it was at one point soaking in a pool of human crap. Never again will I buy a used phone. Many moons ago, I worked for a tow truck company. We got a call one day to pull a stuck tractor out of some mud. We decided to take the largest wrecker we had, as the call didn't state how big the tractor was, or how far it would have to be winched. We roll up to the address given. A man meets us at the driveway. He says to follow his truck, and he will show us where the tractor was at. We proceed to follow this guy, in a beat up old truck, to the back of a chicken farm. The ammonia smell from the poop wasn't too bad, but as we got farther, a smell began to permeate the cab of the truck. It was a smell I cannot describe, other than pure foulness. Every time I think back about this story, I get a little sick. Mouth is watering as I type. We finally stop. The man jumps out of his truck, and we walk about 50 yards into the woods. Smell becoming unbearable. We see what it was. The tractor was stuck in a runoff area of a pond, and the owner of the chicken farm would throw his dead chickens in the runoff to rot. Think thousands of chicken carcasses rotting in the summer heat. Somehow, I managed to hook the chains and cables to the tractor, and we begin to pull. The owner has jumped onto his tractor, and upon feeling the tractor move, he puts it in gear, and begins to spin the tires. Now, the thing is, this runoff area is fully saturated with water from recent rain, and combined with the chicken carcasses, made quite a soup. As he is spinning the tires, dead chickens are flying up with the water, and a whole new level of smell hits us. We have been gagging the entire time, but this smell causes full-on puking, and the sob on the tractor is just having the best time, smiling and waving, while dead chickens are whizzing by his head, thrown by the spinning tires. We finally get it out, give him the bill, and he casually mentions he has no sense of smell or taste. Mother of God. This was 17 years ago, and I still get queasy thinking about it. Roommate brought home 2 girls, both drunk. He wanted me to be wingman babysitter for the other. She was married 110 pounds. I let her into my room while I was under my covers. She ran to the bathroom. I had the master bedroom with attached bathroom, and started puking in my toilet. Afterwards she asked to take a shower. At this point I just want to be left alone and go to sleep. Sure, I tell her. 20 minutes goes by and she's still in there. I hear more puking and am growing more annoyed. Another 20 minutes goes by and I walk in the bathroom to ask if she's okay. "Don't come in here," she half gurgled at me. Then her head smashed against the frosted glass door and it looked like the girl from The Ring was coming to haunt me. Here's where it gets gross. I opened the shower door and see this tiny adult scooping up her fesses and trying to smash her down my shower drain. This crap looked like 10 barrels of chili had been thrown against every inch of my shower. It was everywhere. Here she is scooping, smashing, and crying, trying to rid the evidence of her fecal explosion. I slammed the door shut and go get my roommate and the other girl. They were still just talking on the couch. They grab her and take her to the other shower while I had a disco party of comic disinfectant to cover up every last inch of my shower. TLDR, a girl crap in my shower. I've had norovirus. I've had food poisoning. Believe it or not, but the food poisoning was the worst of the two. It didn't last as long as the norovirus, but was more intense. I vomited so much that I burst all the blood vessels in my eyes. I had blood red eyes for a month after, so that was fun. I should have gone to a hospital. By the time it was past, all the doctors could recommend was to drink lots of Gatorade and sleep. It was so bad that I wonder to this day if it wasn't food poisoning, that I had somehow ingested some chemical or another. Symptoms for both were about the same, spurting from both ends, exhausted, aching, dehydrated, drinking water simply so I'd have something to vomit rather than dry heaving. I completely violated that toilet. By the end, it was dang near like the toilet in Trainspotting. I was violated. That was bad enough, but the morning after was what hit me the most. I woke up naked and more than a little shell-shocked, with memories I was too disoriented to understand. The only thing I knew was that I was vulnerable and that I felt incredibly disgusting. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. I was trying to keep myself covered with the blanket, searching for my clothes that he threw everywhere after taking them off of my incapacitated drunk butt. He whipped it off me and said, "What are you trying to hide? I've already seen it all anyways," like it was his. I think every day about every stupid balls thing I'd done to end up in that situation and all the blaring red flags with sirens I'd ignored. I know it's not my fault, but if I had been smarter, or even just a little bit less stupid, I might have been okay. Maybe I wouldn't have these memories that come back over and over until I drowned them in whiskey and box wine. I am so sorry that happened to you. How awful. My dad passed me a gene that gives him and I like a million moles. So, on occasion they get irritated and rather than ignore it I just get them removed. Anyway, lower back right in the waistband of my underwear sprouted up a mole and it got really annoying cause it would stretch from underwear moving. No biggie, get it chopped, good to go. So I go in for the procedure. With this mole in particular, he happens to slip just a little when he cut it. I hear his oops and I don't want to panic. It bleeds a little, and 3 all do. Essentially he just cut a little deeper than normal for it. He cauterized it, put a bandage on, sent me on my way. Getting off the table I felt it kinda shift and I thought it bled, but bandage on it could have just been rubbing. So I go about my day for a good 6 hours. Come home and at the moment I step in the door, I feel the bandage actually leak down my back. So, go up to the bathroom with the medkit. Gonna replace the bandage. I pull it off and it didn't look too bad, but suddenly the size of a dime like the end of a hose of blood just starts pouring out. I faint. My sister comes in, she puts a bandage and pressure on. She faints. Fast forward like 10 minutes when I wake up to my sister flush and sitting up, and to what felt like I peed myself, but it was just a warm puddle of blood. It took a trip to the hospital to stop the bleeding and took like 2 weeks to heal. TLDR. Got a mole removed and the doc didn't bother to fully cauterize it. About 6 hours later I fainted from all the blood. When I was a brand new sailor stationed on my first ship, I was still learning parts of my job. I serve as a welder plumber. On a ship, all of the waste drains into big tanks. All the shower water, deck drains, kitchen drains and crap and pee from the toilets is collected and routinely pumped over the side. I was sent to manually run the pump and empty the tanks. I was unsupervised and not very knowledgeable yet. There are some small details that come with handling the pumping system that I was painfully unaware of. As I was unscrewing a T-handle valve to prime the pump, I encountered one of those small details and learned the hard way. I was naive. I assumed the T-handle would stop screwing out once it had reached the end. It didn't. It just busted out, and I was immediately blasted with a brown liquid coming out at a high velocity. 5,000 people's crap, pee, shower and kitchen water was pummeling me. I was so in shock. I stood there and tried to jam the T-handle back in. The result was similar to the effect of washing a spoon in the sink, and a geeze of poop water shot at my face. I came to my senses and frantically secured a secondary valve. This all happened in the span of just a few seconds. but it felt like I was moving in slow motion. Oh god. This is only one of many unspeakably gross things I've endured in the Navy, but this is the worst. It happened recently, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. My buddy was having a birthday and decided he wanted to get hammered. Pretty much par for the course with most young people. So since it's his birthday I offer to drive. He agrees, but at the last minute he decides he wants me to drive his car. I agree, but not sure why it mattered. We get everyone together and head for the bars. Over the night he's getting beers, shots, and so on. Maybe 5 hours of being bought shots one after the other. I want him that he'll be sick and insists that he hasn't puked in so long that he will be fine. Fast forward to the end of the night and he begins to pass out in the passenger seat of his car. I keep his window rolled down in case he does get sick. Next thing I know I hear him spewing vomit. Not out the window but straight into his car. He filled the cup holders and hand grips in his car. We had to drive almost 20 minutes home still and nothing to clean it up with. The smell was bad. The chunks of food were worse. But the worst of all was trying to get it all out of his car while we got him cleaned up. He was covered in his own vomit and trying to scoop it out of the cup holders was challenging considering the smell and the fact it was someone's vomit. One of the single worst experiences of my life so far. I worked as a daily support provider for developmentally disabled adults in Kentucky a few years ago. Our facility took on the worst the state had to offer. 4 nights 3 days a week I'd stay at a group home which housed 3 young adult men and I'd have to care for them as one would a young child. Changing, bathing, feeding, cooking, cleaning, helping them board the bus to the day center, etc. One of the men was a profoundly autistic 26-year-old that had some weird thing going on with his butt. I was bathing him one day and he got on all fours in the tub and prolapsed his butthole. I bugged. There were 2 of us in this home because it was considered the most difficult in the company, and of it my co-worker said, "Didn't you read his case file? Just put on a pair of gloves and push it back in." That's exactly what I had to do. It was around Christmas time, 2015, I think. I had a mess of unused Kohl's cash coupons and I had an additional coupon that entitled me to 30% off of my purchase. When I entered, the humanity was thick. I was not prepared for that, but I also was not discouraged. I bought some slippers, a few t-shirts and some pants. I don't remember how much the final charge was because that receipt was discarded a long time ago. That night, I feel something kind of goofy in my stomach. I didn't pay it much attention. I laid down and tried to get some rest. As the hours pressed on, it got progressively worse. Fast forward a couple of hours to about 1 AM. I had a gag reflex. I haul butt downstairs to the basement. It's worth noting that I sleep naked for this story. Don't judge me. As I'm puking my guts out, a stream of crap is firing out of my butthole onto the concrete floor below. I thought that was it. Sadly, it was not. The shower was right next to the toilet and seeing as I was already naked, I took the opportunity to shower. Oh dear, I puked in there, too. Lots and lots. After I finished with that, I got a nearby dustpan and garden shovel. Not sure why I had a garden shovel in the basement, and spent the next 15 minutes scooping my vomit chunks into the dustpan and dumping them into the toilet. So, by now, I'm done vomiting. I grabbed a nearby towel and wiped up the mess I shat and tossed it right in the garbage. Sadly, I was unable to attend the holiday festivities with my family as a result of this. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.